Alright, well, I'm going to talk about Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Also, a little bit about this Florida nightclub shooting. They both connect to the same stuff, like everything that I've been talking about. They're both connected to the royal theme, especially in regards to King Charles, King James, and the English Civil War. So first off, yesterday with the Florida nightclub shooting, another story in the news was that Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors got suspended for Game 5. I mean, it's just pretty stupid. I can't, even without numbers, how can you not see how it's rigged? I mean, Tyronn Lue is now the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tyronn Lue, famous for Allen Iverson stepping over him. And I talked about this months ago, so you knew it was probably going to come back up, but LeBron blatantly steps over Draymond Green, and then Draymond Green swings his arm and hits him in the nuts or whatever. And once again, even at that, you knew it was going to come back up because there's been a hitting in the nuts theme throughout the playoffs, for whatever the reason. It's just so obvious. You knew it was going to come back on Draymond Green. I don't think it guarantees Golden State to lose tonight, though. There's a lot of things pointing to get the Warriors winning in Game 5. And the reason I say that is because of when YouTube was copyright striking my videos. It'll be amazing if they win tonight, because that means YouTube was actually really showing me this day. But, we'll see. But let me go through and I'll explain some stuff here. So first off, what are the odds here? Number 23 versus number 23. If you look in the background here, you also got Channing Frye guarding Andre Iguodala, number 9. And number 9, the 923 stuff I've talked about so much, with Pope Francis and the train wreck last year, LeBron James and Jewish gematria even equals 923. Even on CNN, they had the article, they had this picture. This was their only picture on the article on CNN. Number 9 trying to break up the 223s fighting. It's ridiculous. The video on ESPN, even 23 seconds long. 23 seconds long, 23 versus number 23. The 9th prime number, even 23. If you read out the word 9, it equals 42, just like LeBron James. But let's move on here. I guess I just wrote in here a little bit about Tyronn Lue getting stepped over by Allen Iverson. It was in Game 1 of the 2001 NBA Finals. The Lakers came back and won that series, although they lost that game. So, if they're rigging it to something like that with history, it makes you wonder, because LeBron actually lost this game, but Draymond was the one who got stepped over. So it's just kind of a backwards way. There's no way you could really base it off of that. But the Lakers lost Game 1 107-101. In gematria, Philadelphia, the big way, equals 101. The Lakers lost with 101 points to Philadelphia. Philadelphia scored 107 points. All of this coding I've talked about. A Cavalier in real life is a follower of King Charles during the English Civil War. If Queen Elizabeth dies, her son, Prince Charles, will become King Charles III. And also, Cleveland Cavaliers have identical gematria, 168 to Queen Elizabeth II. So it's totally all about this royalty theme and whatnot. There's a whole lot more I've shown in previous videos. If you're new, please go back and watch, my videos probably back to like February or something. I know it's a lot of information to take in, but you'll definitely start to see what I'm talking about and follow the same patterns. There's just too much information to represent every time. Anyway, in Game 4, this guy ran out onto the court with 1:12 in the fourth quarter. They didn't tell you what it was, but you assumed it was a streaker because they wouldn't show him on camera. Just interesting, streaker in gematria equals 97. The Cavs even finished this game with 97 points. There was, and it was a minute 12 in the fourth. I just made my last video and my last few posts were all about the number 112. Prince died on the 112th day, which was also Queen Elizabeth's 90th birthday. All kinds of stuff. I talked about Magic Johnson, talking about the Showtime Lakers. Showtime equals 112. Finals MVP equals 112. Last year, Andre Iguodala won it. He equals 112. Steph Curry's real name equals 112. Just like the whole season's been about the Chicago Bulls, 112. We just had the shooting in Orlando. Also, we had the Christina Grimmie who died, which just seems kind of strange that we have this famous singer from The Voice die in Orlando, and then literally we get the Orlando gay club shooting. Equals 112, though. Anyway, this guy has Trump sucks written on his chest here. Trump sucks in Gematria equals 161. And he's a famous YouTuber. His name, or his channel is Vitalized TV, which also equals 161, just like Trump sucks. If you write out Warriors win back-to-back championships, it equals 161. Also, Florida Nightclub equals 161. And let us not forget also, American Civil War in Gematria also equals 161. Just interesting, I'm talking about the English Civil War, but there's been a whole lot of Civil War coding in general. Obama, when he first became president, he opened up Ford's Theater in his, the first month that he was president. There's been all the theater shootings. He even named the turkeys last year Honest and Abe. And there's all kinds of other parallels between Obama and Abraham Lincoln, just like how they did it with JFK and Lincoln. Obama was even born in the year 61. The Civil War began in 1861. A ton more to that, but I want to keep moving on here. I guess also if you write out 161 in Gematria, it equals 239. I'm talking about this 923. Pope Francis went to the White House last year at 923 on 923. He arrived in America on his 923rd day as Pope. But you can write September 23rd. In England, they write it as 23/9. We're also in the 239th year of the United States this year. In Jewish Gematria, Golden Gate equals 239. That's where they believe the Messiah will come through, right? The Golden State Warriors play in the San Francisco Bay Area with the Golden Gate. Anyway, on ESPN they have this article that Draymond Green hasn't missed a game since January 13th, 112-110 loss to the Denver Nuggets. January 13th, a super interesting day for him to miss. It can also be written as 13/1, a lot like 131. Or it's a lot like 113, depending on where you're from. The word championship equals 131. Denver Nuggets just so happens to equal 161. Game 5 will actually be exactly 5 months from this day, too. 5 months in Gematria equals 131, just like championship. Prince Charles also equals 131 in Gematria. If you write out 131 in Gematria, it equals 107, just like if you write out King Charles equals 107. This game right here also just so happened to be the Warriors' 39th game of the season, which means that Game 5 is 65 days later. The word Prince in Gematria, or it's 65 games later, so the 39 plus 65 would be to Game 5. The word Prince even equals 65. The Warriors, originally from Philadelphia, the small way, equals 65. And in regards to the Orlando stuff yesterday, they love to do these little riddles, right? And so you instantly just start thinking of stuff that has to do with Orlando, like Disneyland or whatever's there, Disney World, Disneyland, can't remember. But I instantly thought of Orlando Bloom, and I looked up Orlando Bloom. He just so happened to turn 39 years old on January 13th. The Warriors had their 39th game that day. He's even in the movie Troy, and he plays the character Paris. You know, the guy who killed Achilles. Kobe Bryant has been a big part of this season with his retirement and whatnot. Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles against the Golden State Warriors. He came back in and made 2 free throws with a torn Achilles, making the score 109 to 109. Los Angeles equals 109. He got the Lakers their 43rd win of the season. Kobe Bryant was 34 years old. He scored 34 points in that game. He came back exactly 34 weeks later. Couldn't even play with Shaq, who wore number 34. There's lots of 34 around Kobe Bryant. In the beginning of the season, the Warriors even defeated the Lakers by 34 points. And if I remember right, Kobe Bryant even scored the Lakers' 34th point of the game. I also found it interesting that if you write out Orlando Bloom, it equals 136, a lot like the date June 13th, the day that Game 5 is on, 13/6. He was even used to be married to a girl named Miranda Kerr, which just kind of sticks out. Steve Kerr, Stephen Curry. I'm also assuming that tonight's game, Game 5, I've been talking about a big Varejao game. Who knows if this is going to happen, whether it's good or bad for the Warriors. I feel like Varejao has something super significant going on with him. And I'll explain more as we move on here, but, you know, he's played with the Cavs for pretty much his whole career, and then he signs with the Warriors this year. He's the first player to play for both teams in the same season, to play against each other in the finals. And now that Draymond Green's out, he's more than likely going to get to play a little bit more. So, you know, we'll see. But anyway, that Nuggets game that Draymond Green sat out, 112 to 110, the total score of 232. I've talked a lot about this in regards to the Kansas Amtrak derailment. Remember I said last year's NBA Finals was connected to the Amtrak derailment in Philadelphia that happened at 9:23 p.m. You know, LeBron James was in the movie Trainwreck. LeBron James equals 923. In the beginning of that movie, Amy Schumer's character is 9 years old. The rest of the movie takes place 23 years later. Trainwreck in Gematria just so happens to equal 122. If you write out Pope Francis, he equals 122. Golden State equals 122. Kansas City equals 122. The team that won the World Series, the Royals, right? They beat the Mets, who play in Queens. If you write out New York Mets, it equals 168, just like Cleveland Cavaliers, just like Queen Elizabeth II. So much more to it. But anyway, just interesting. Total score of that game against Denver, 232, just like Kansas, just like Satan, just like if you write out Paris terrorist attacks. Even in regards to Prince Charles, I wrote Prince Charles dies June 13th, 2016. That equals 232. I don't like doing this, though. A lot of times when you write out big old phrases like that, and it's just a wild guess. But just interesting, so I put it in there. The Amtrak derailment was on Pi Day, which was also Steph Curry's 28th birthday. The Warriors defeated the Pelicans on that day. And just think about all the recent deaths in New Orleans and whatnot, even Bryce DeJean Jones and Will Smith. And there was another guy, can't think of his name, Henry Childs or something like that, who was also a famous New Orleans Saint and whatnot. He died at the age of 65. Tons of stuff with that. I've made previous videos. But anyway, they beat the Pelicans that are from New Orleans. Total score was 232, just like this Kansas and whatnot. Kansas in simple gematria also equals 65, just like Philadelphia, just like Prince. And there's more to it than that. It was also 2 months, 19 days before the NBA Finals began. If you write out back-to-back championships, it equals 219. The Warriors also defeated the Pelicans on the first game of the season, scoring 111 points. In the NBA Finals equals 111. Anyway, in regards to Amtrak, if you write Amtrak out, it equals 222. Anderson Varejao was picked up by the Warriors on 222, which was 3 months and 11 days before the finals. He was picked up because the Blazers dropped. So he was picked up because the Blazers dropped him. Then he wore number 18 for the Warriors, and then 18 days later, the Warriors played the Blazers again on 3/11. Right, so picked up 3 months, 11 days before the finals on 2/22. Then he doesn't play the Blazers again until 3/11, which was also 2 months, 22 days before the finals. If you go from 2/22 to 6/13, it's a span of 112 days. All the 112s that I talked about earlier. And like I said, on the Kansas train derailment day, the Warriors defeated the Pelicans 2 months, 19 days before the finals. Back-to-back championships equals 219. But just before picking up Varejao, the Warriors lost by 33 points to the Blazers on 2/19. Which also interesting that 2/19 is the 50th day of the year. Yesterday we had 50 people die in the shooting in Orlando. I even talked about Kimbo Slice's last fight ever was on this day. Roger Goodell even got death hoaxed on Twitter. He was born on this day. This day is a very special day. Or at least this number, 219. The Warriors even play in California. California and Jewish Gematria equals 219. Interesting, right now the Warriors have 88 wins on the season, and California equals 88. 88 has been a really significant number in regards to the Warriors this year, especially with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Steph Curry, though, also wears number 30. The 30th prime is 113, a lot like Draymond's last game that he missed. Michael Jordan equals 113. Kobe Bryant equals 113. Earlier on ESPN, I was watching a video down here, and it was with these two, but at the very end, this lady said that if LeBron loses, it will be like the apocalypse. If you write out apocalypse, it also equals 113. Well, I spelled it wrong, but I just mixed the letters up. 113. And the reason that's so interesting is I've mentioned how tomorrow is actually Donald Trump's birthday, which is he'll be 70 years old. It's the 70th NBA season and whatnot. But I also mentioned how tomorrow will be Pope Francis's 1,189th day as Pope. A lot like the chapters in the King James Bible, the Cavaliers have King James. If this series does go to 7 games, it will just so happen to land on the King James Bible guy, the King. His real birthday was the same day that Game 7 will be on. He would have been 450 years old. But if you include the end date, today is also Pope Francis's 1,189th day as Pope. So just interesting to think about. 219 to Game 1 was 104 days. The Warriors beat the Cavs with 104 points. I've talked about this number a whole lot. The Warriors got their 73rd win against Grizzlies that equal 131 like championship. It was on the 104th day of the year. They scored 125 points. The Grizzlies scored 104 points. If you write out 125, it equals 104 on the 104th day. They made the Warriors record 73-9. The 131st prime is 739. The only other time in the regular season that the Warriors scored 125 points was against the Chicago Bulls on January 20th, where they scored 125-94, a total score of 219. And then also against the Pelicans on Pi Day, which was 2 months, 19 days before the finals. Interesting, if you write out 104, though, it equals 168, like Cleveland Cavaliers, like Queen Elizabeth II. This guy right here, too, James McAdoo, was also put into Game 4 in front of other players, like Azili and whatnot. And they even mentioned that. I can't believe they're putting him in, and because they had said, oh, he's faster, blah, 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 But he got his first minutes of the finals. I knew there was something significant about it. If you look him up, he was born on January 4th, which is a super special day this year, actually. Interesting, it's a lot like 14, too, if you write out 14. it equals 104. But he's 23 years old. He played for North Carolina along with Harrison Barnes. You know, Harrison is interesting for the fact that the 9th president and the 23rd president both had the last name of Harrison. So. But anyway, Harrison Barnes also connected to the death of Bryce DeJean Jones, who equals 65. He played for the Iowa State Cyclones, that equals 65. Harrison Barnes from Ames, Iowa, where the Iowa State Cyclones play. Harrison Barnes in Gematria equals 161, that I mentioned earlier. But on January 4th, this guy's birthday was also the day that Elton Brand came out of retirement to go back and play for the Philadelphia 76ers. His name in Gematria equals 42. He wore number 42. He came out of retirement 4 months, 24 days after retiring. On August 11th, which was also the same day that Flip Saunders announced his cancer. A lot more to that as well. This is the 223rd day of the year. Flip Saunders born on 2/23. The word Masonic equals 223. The first game of the season. It was a tribute to Flip Saunders as the Timberwolves versus the Lakers. The total score was 223. A lot more to that. But in regards to Elton Brand, he was drafted by the Bulls in 1999, the same year that Fred Hoiberg, the former coach of the Iowa State Cyclones, came to the Bulls as a player, and then now he left Iowa State to come coach the Bulls this year. The Chicago Bulls, just a super significant theme this year in regards to the Warriors getting the 73 wins. But like I said, once again, it connects to Bryce DeJean Jones, Harrison Barnes, Iowa State Cyclones, Prince. That season, the Bulls even lost 65 games, just like Prince. Also on that day, the Cavs beat the Raptors 122-100, which, interesting, the total score equals 222. The Cavs scored 122 points. Golden State equals 122. The Raptors were the host of the All-Star Week with the back-to-back theme. Right? Zach LaVine won the Slam Dunk Contest back-to-back. Russell Westbrook won back-to-back All-Star Game MVPs. If you go back and just listen to all of the games, they mentioned back-to-back for absolutely no reason throughout all of the games, like back-to-back turnovers, back-to-back three-pointers. I mean, I've heard it more than I've ever heard it in my entire life. But in regards to the Raptors, Drake is also a big fan of the Raptors. He has the song called Back to Back even. This game made the Cavs record 23-9, a lot like the 923 or the 239. But the reason I brought this back up is because Elton Brand was born on 3/11. And he wasn't activated until January 26th, and then he didn't play until 3/4, which is a span of 38 days. Prince, the small way, equals 38. In Game 4, Curry even scored 38 points. Even in the game when the game that Draymond missed on 1/13, Curry scored 38 points. Also, if you go from January 26th to Game 4, it was a span of 136 days. The Warriors beat the Cavs this year by 34 points, right? 3-4. 34 points on January 18th, which was also 136 days before the finals. Game 5 will be on June 13th, which is 13/6. This game was also 34 Cavs games after LeBron shot 9 of 23 against the Knicks. And there's too much to talk about. I'm going to move on here. So YouTube also was telling me about this day, or at least the number 165. And I had put a video up about 22 Jump Street, and then I put it clear back in on June 13th of 2014 is when I put that video up. I put up a video about Prince, and they instantly copyright struck this old video I had up for over 2 years, And I went and looked at it. 22 in Gematria equals 165. June 13th this year is the 165th day of the year. I put the video up on 11/25, which was 165 days after this movie came out. June 13th, like I said, the 165th day of the year. Basketball equals 2-2 in Gematria. King Charles I was coronated on 2-2. The Cavs are followers of him, but he also married his wife, Henrietta Maria, on June 13th, and she was born on 11/25. I mean, pretty crazy odds. They even gave my video a copyright strike 165 days after my birthday. Charles I's real name is Charles Stewart, that equals 165. So that's why I wonder so much about Game 5 right now, and the Warriors have a chance to win. It'll also be, very close, or even considered Pope Francis's 1189th day as Pope. It's like they were foreshadowing everything that I've been talking about. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe it has nothing to do with June 13th. Still pretty interesting, all of this royal theming that I've been talking about. There's a lot to do with June 13th. Game 5 will also be the Warriors' 104th game of the season, and the Cavs' 101st game. Philadelphia equals 101. All of the 104 stuff that I mentioned before. The Cavs have King James, but the real King James died in the year 1625. LeBron James scored 25 points in Game 4. If he loses the finals, he'll be 2-5 in the NBA Finals. On 2-5 this year, he shot 9 of 23 again, and the Cavs lost to the Celtics 104-103. And remember earlier in the playoffs, they even had the 25 threes in the game record. In Game 4 at halftime, Jalen Rose made a huge deal about the number 52 at halftime. He kept saying, that's my number, 52, halfway to 52, that's my number. And they were showing a stat of Clay and Curry having 25 points, and Jalen just started going off about his number 52. Well, Game 4 just so happened to have a date numerology of 52. When I looked it back up, the Warriors hadn't lost a game all season on date numerology of 52. They even beat the Cavs on Christmas Day with a date numerology of 52. Christmas Day was 168 days before Game 4. Cleveland Cavaliers equal 168, and they lost. The Cavaliers also lost their first game of the season on 10/27/2015 with a date numerology of 52. They lost to the Chicago Bulls, and that was with David Black coaching. And then when David Black got fired, Tyronn Lue's first game just so happened to be against the Chicago Bulls. I mean, the odds, and they also lost that game. So the Cavs lost to the Bulls. First game with each new coach or whatever. The first game of the season to the day that Lue lost was a span of 2 months, 27 days. Game 4 was on the 227th day of the NBA season. 227 is the 49th prime number. Warriors equals 49. Revelation equals 49. The first game of the season was on Philadelphia's 333rd anniversary. Philadelphia comes from the book of Revelation. And believe it or not, the Cavs only won 1 of 4 games this season against the Bulls. They won on 2/18, which was the 49th day of the year, and then they lost on April 9th, 4-9. So, I mean, you're telling me that's not some weird connection, not planned? No way. In Game 4, they also showed the stat that teams that are down 3-1 in the finals are 0-32 in winning. Cleveland and Gematria equals 33, so if they lose, it will be 0-33. But I also thought, this is the 33rd time, so if Cleveland does come back and win, it would be fitting as well. And they would also be 1-32 then, which is interesting because on January 18th, the Warriors beat them 132-98. That was also 136 days before the finals, a lot like June 13th again. But anyway, yesterday we also got the 50 killed, 53 injured in the Florida nightclub in Orlando. Just want to point out, 50 people died, 53 people hurt is what they reported pretty much the whole day. I'm not sure if that's changed, but that's 103 people. The shooter right here, his name in Gematria, the small way even equals 103. His name, the big way, equals 220 died, which is the 50th prime, and he kills 50 people. If you include him, it would be 104 people, by the way. And I've been seeing 103, 104 a lot. That's very significant to the NBA Finals. ESPN even gave us this video of Klay Thompson talking about LeBron getting his feelings hurt and then LeBron's response. The original Klay Thompson video they had up was minute 7, a lot like 107, right? Like King Charles. But this one was a minute 3. And in this video, LeBron's talking about how he's just taking the higher road. He's been taking the higher road for 13 years. I know he says taking the higher road, but the phrase is like the high road or taking the high road. Taking the high road equals 165 in Gematria. The high road equals 103. And once again, Game 5 on the 165th day of the year. Also, he says 13 years. 13 years in Gematria equals 923, just like LeBron James. James McAdoo's birthday on 1/4. Also, 103 days after 923. And like I said, that was the game that gave the Cavs their 23-9 record. A while back, I even mentioned Jason Richardson and how he retired on 9/23. He was one of the 4 back-to-back slam dunk contest winners like Zach LaVine this year. The others were Michael Jordan and Nate Robinson. But anyway, he was drafted by the Golden State Warriors. He even wore number 23 for the Orlando Magic. But when he won the slam dunk contest or whatever, he was a Golden State Warrior. His name in Gematria, the big way and the small way, equals Cleveland Cavaliers. But remember, back-to-back also equals 69. He also retired after last season, and he played with the Philadelphia 76ers. Also in this video up here, if you notice, LeBron James is wearing an Undertaker shirt. Just kind of interesting. He's wearing the Undertaker shirt. Undertaker in WrestleMania is, known for the streak that was broke by Brock Lesnar. The streak in Gematria equals 107, just like King Charles. The Undertaker's 51 years old. A whole bunch of other connections with the Undertaker, but all the 51 stuff with Cleveland. Cleveland equals 51, Cleveland Cavs 51, LeBron James 51. Quicken Loans equals 51. They haven't won a sports championship in 51 years. Although they did report that the UFC fighter had broke the streak because Stipe Miocic or whatever. Anyway, the Undertaker's current WrestleMania record is 23-1. Just interesting, if you write out 231, it also equals 104. He beat Shane McMahon, that equals 114, just like LeBron James the big way. And that was in WrestleMania 32. And I remembered last year one of the big deals was they showed you where it was going to be next year, and it just so happens to be in Orlando for WrestleMania 33. That's on 4/2. LeBron James even equals 42. WrestleMania this year was on 4/3, the same day as the Chester, Philadelphia Amtrak derailment. The one that was going to Savannah, Georgia, and the Cavs got Jordan McRae. I made a whole video on this as well, and Jordan McRae from Savannah, Georgia. But this Amtrak derailment also the same day that Festus Ezeli came back to the Warriors. He wears number 31. He missed 31 games. That's why they picked up Anderson Varejao, because Anderson Varejao was going to replace him. They picked up Anderson Varejao 31 days after David Blatt got fired, also the same day that Steve Kerr came back. Varejao played 31 games for the Cavs this season. He's in his 11th season even. 11 is the 11th prime number is 31. And I think it was in Game 3. Maybe it was Game 4. I can't remember. There was one of the games where Varejao came in and just fouled the guy and then complained about it. And they took him out of the game with 31 seconds exactly. Anyway, moral of the story, the day that Festus Ezeli came back on this Chester Amtrak derailment, the Warriors defeated the Blazers 136-111, right? The June 13th date, once again, the NBA Finals. But they also got their 69th win. Back-to-back equals 69. Cleveland Cavaliers equals 69. Also, I guess if you write out the number 31, it also equals 134, just like if you write out King Charles III. Anderson Varejao also significant in this Orlando shooting. He was originally drafted to the Orlando Magic, but then traded to the Cavs before the season began in 2004-2005. His first season, the Cavs lost their first game, and they scored 104 points. They also lost to Toronto on their very last game of the season, and they won, and they scored 104 points. So they scored 104 points the first game of the season and 104 points the last game of the season. The games were also spread apart by 168 days. Remember, Cleveland Cavaliers equal 168. Queen Elizabeth II equals 168. Varejao also born on the day of the final blood moon of the Tetrad and whatnot. If you go to his birthday this year, Game 5 is 107 days before his 34th birthday. Also, I forgot to mention in regards to Draymond's last game that he missed, I said Curry scored 38 points, but the date numerology was 50. You know, just like the amount of people who died in Orlando, just like the 219 day that I talked about, that's the 50th day of the year. We had Super Bowl 50 this year. 219, though, also connected to Pope Francis, like I mentioned before, and the Philadelphia Amtrak derailment last year. The 219th day is 8/7. It's also the halfway point between Queen Elizabeth's 64th year as being queen and the 65th anniversary or whatever. It's a span of 183 days both ways. But in regards to King James, the real King James died on the 87th day of the year. He was also born on what would be Game 7 this year on 6/19. It'll be 450 years, but right now it's still 449. 449 is the 87th prime number. Remember, Guy Fawkes tried to kill him. He was arrested and executed 87 days after being arrested. You know, in regards to King James too, he also became the king after Elizabeth I, which interesting, we have Elizabeth II right now. But the reason he became the king was because she didn't have any children, and it went clear back to Henry VIII's sister, Margaret Tudor, which just so happens to equal 161. And King James is her great-grandson. But I mean, just if you go back and look at the lineage of these people, like, they all marry their first cousins and all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like, it's just absolutely ridiculous, you know? If I married my first cousin, it would never end. I would never hear the end of it. But all of these royal family people, they marry their first cousins left and right. Anyway, as I was looking at it, I went back and looked at Henry VIII's wives, and one of them was Anne of Cleves, and it just made me think of Cleveland. And then I thought of the shooter in Orlando, his last name was Mateen, and for whatever reason I thought of Mateen Cleaves, and I thought, oh, I'll look up Mateen Cleaves, you know? Mateen Cleaves even played for the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2004, which was the 2003-2004 season, the year before Anderson Varejao was there, but it was also LeBron James's rookie season. And before this, he played for the Sacramento Kings. I mean, just how fitting. Another thing is that he played for Michigan State, you know, just like Draymond Green. But Michigan State in 2000 beat Florida, right, where Orlando is from, for the Final Four tournament and whatnot. Michigan State beat Florida in the championship game. They beat them 89-76 with a total score of 165. He was even born on 9/7. The Cavs just lost with a score of 97 points. So, I mean, who knows, you know, it just seems a little strange. I even talked a lot about Magic Johnson in the last video. Magic Johnson from Michigan State. Mateen Cleaves even from Flint, Michigan, you know, with the whole water crisis and whatnot. Also, I noticed this nightclub shooting. The address is Orange Avenue. I mean, who knows? But I've seen a lot of orange stuff lately. Orange equals 33. But also, it reminds me how King Charles I's second son, who became the king, was King James II. He was even the last Catholic king. But he was overthrown by William of Orange. And just interesting, if King Charles or Prince Charles dies, the next in line will be King William or Prince William. And I've seen a whole lot of stuff that people born on January 20th and whatnot, King William equals 120. But anyway, of course, they make it a big deal that it was a gay bar, right? It was a gay nightclub. And then they even tell us that it was on the same night as the Tony Awards. The Tony Awards they celebrate Broadway acts. And I know it's not just me, but there's a stigma to theater that most people think, it's gay people in the theater and whatnot, right? So I thought that was kind of interesting. This guy, even the host of the Tony Awards, born on August 22nd, that is the day that the English Civil War began. Also the same day that Huey P. Newton, the founder of the Black Panthers, died. His name in Gematria, 107, just like King Charles. And look at the list of plays and nominations or whatever. What one really sticks out to you? This one was supposedly so big, but what one really sticks out to you? Is it this one right here? King Charles III? I mean, what an interesting play. Or whatever, an original play with a nominated. Give me a break. I've been talking about this forever. So I looked this up. Look when it originally premiered. April 10th, which in England they would write it as 10/4, a lot like 104. The guy who plays Charles in this just so happened to be born on May 13th. This is another day that YouTube was showing me by them copyright strikes. If you haven't, go back and watch at least like the last 5 or 6 videos in the playlist I made about YouTube copyright striking my videos. All of this information will make a lot more sense. But May 13th was a huge significant day. I talked about the movie Money Monster coming out on this day. It's the 134th day of the year. King Charles III equals 134. So interesting, he even plays King Charles III in a play called King Charles III, and he's born on the 134th day. King Charles III equals 134. He's even 70 years old right now. It was the 70th Tony Awards, the 70th NBA season. And I mean, his list of awards, 2002 Bloody Sunday, like we had yesterday, right? I mean, this shooting also, the first thing I thought about, a nightclub, and ISIS. I thought of the Bataclan or whatever at Paris, France, just because of the ISIS connection, And the Bataclan Theater in Gematria even equals 50, like the amount of people killed. The address was even at 50 Boulevard Voltaire. Super Bowl 50 was even on the 38th day of the year. Prince equals 38. It says 50 killed equals 56, just like ISIS, just like Paris, France, just like President, just like Osama bin Laden, just like Adolf Hitler, just like Saddam Hussein. Earlier in the day, they reported it 50 dead. 50 dead equals 80, just like King Charles III the small way. 50 dead the small way equals 44. The kill number, Orlando, Florida equals 144. If you write out 44, it equals 144. Florida equals 65, just like Prince. Just even think of the death of Kimbo Slice, Florida. Orlando equals 79, just like LeBron James's full name. I've mentioned a whole lot with this as well. Murder equals 79, champion equals 79. Pope Francis turned 79 years old, 168 days before the NBA Finals began. One other thing in regards to Orlando, and also in regards to the Chicago Bulls and whatnot, they're the team who beat the Bulls in 1995 when Jordan first came out of retirement, wearing number 45. Remember, after 22 games, I believe it was Nick Anderson was talking crap, and then Jordan switched back to number 23 on his 23rd game back. I mean, give me a break. But Orlando also got swept by Houston in the finals that year. Houston won back-to-back championships that year. There's a lot of talk about this series going to 7 games and whatnot. Like I said, because it falls on King James's birthday, also Father's Day. But interesting, last night, after the Penguins won the Stanley Cup, In the breaking news here, they write, there will be no Game 7. Pittsburgh, blah, blah, blah. To me, it's just like, why in the world would they even write, there will be no Game 7? You know, I mean, since they won, why does Game 7 even matter anymore, you know? Just my opinion, I guess. Just seems kind of weird they would write, there will be no Game 7. There will be no Game 7 in Gematria equals 239. The video they show you, 2 minutes, 39 seconds, you know, we're in the 239th year of the United States. So, you know, I know there's just so much information to present all the time, but like I was saying, I think that even without Draymond Green, the Warriors have a great chance to win tonight. I think it might be scripted that way. If they don't win tonight, it most likely will go 7 games and be on, you know, the birthday of King James, which who knows, that might not be very good for the Warriors. But, you know, my opinion tonight, I think the Warriors are going to win. But who knows? I've been saying this all year. There's a back-to-back theme. That's why I've been following the Warriors so much. But then when I found out back-to-back equals 69, just like Cleveland Cavaliers, you know, I've been questioning it forever. They both made back-to-back championships as well. But my opinion has been the Warriors. There's been a few setbacks because of YouTube trolls and whatever else. But I think they're going to win tonight. Who knows? Don't hold that to me. It could. There is some other stuff showing that it could go the Cavs in 7. So who knows? We'll see. You know, they love to code these things to other events, like I'm showing you. Especially this Orlando shooting has all the same numbers. It's all to do with the royal theme. It's going to be pretty telling, I guess, whoever wins the finals too. You know, if the Cleveland Cavs lose, I truly think Queen Elizabeth is going to die within the next year, regardless. But if the Cavs lose, I think Prince Charles is going to die soon after. If they win, it might be something to do with the, you know, the resurrection of King Charles and King James and whatnot. But whatever, we'll see. Have a good one.